patience, Justin.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So, good, well, I guess afternoon. It is noon anyway. Um, Good afternoon. I'm Justin from Northstar. I believe we were kind of talking a little bit before that I believe I've come out there to your guys' office and done this rules and regulations kind of presentation. I'm going to try to go through some of the most important stuff and kind of go over what we're seeing a lot of, what we're seeing a downtick on, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, questions at the end. We can certainly go through those, but welcome to my spare bedroom slash office. So this is where I've been since March, since we all abandoned the office, as I'm sure most of you guys are kind of in the same boat. But with that, we'll go ahead and kick this off here. And like I said, I do kind of like to start off each meeting kind of going over the most common issues that we've seen in the last quarter. And unfortunately, we don't have quarter three's data compiled yet. But we're working on it, and hopefully probably in the next couple 3 weeks I should have quarter three up to date here. But the biggest thing about this little pie chart here is there's two really big sections that are kind of what I review and go over. The biggest one there is that green section, as you guys can see. It kind of pertains to listings that are entered as pending with a projected close date that don't necessarily get marked sold or pushed back, depending on what the circumstances happen to be with that particular listing. But our system does not send anything out for a week. Our system automatically sends stuff 7 days after that projected close date gets missed. So if you do get anything from us, it's usually about a week after that projected close date doesn't get updated. Like I said, whether you mark it closed or something gets delayed or pushed back or whatever, you can just go in and move that date back, and you won't be penalized by us. But like I said, that's over half of the notices and status notifications that we do send. The other part of the pie that's really big is that orange section, and that's the incorrect and incomplete data. And the majority of those are complaints or concerns that agents send to us using the report a problem with this listing system that we do have in Matrix. I'm sure you guys have all seen it. It's that little red X looking thing underneath the photos in every listing. But in quarter two, we did have 1,300 of them, and I'll break them down on the next slide. But I don't know if you guys kind of saw it sneak in here in the bottom right-hand corner. Of all the notifications and fines that we do send, we actually waive, or most of them result in no fine 98% of the time. So, usually when we send these types of things, we're not really trying to yell at anybody. We're just trying to say, hey, something doesn't look right. Can you please fix it if need be? Otherwise, if it is correct, all we really ask is just some kind of reply saying, nope, this information is correct. But like I said, kind of the biggest thing is out of gosh, it looks like over 5,000, almost 6,000 notifications and fines sent in quarter number two. 98% of them were waived or resulted in no fines. So like I said, when we come knocking, we're not hollering, we're not trying to beat down the door and tell you you're wrong. We want to make sure it's all correct and complete for everyone's use, so that people aren't kind of left hanging. But like I said, the next section here is that incorrect and incomplete data, that orange piece of the pie. And I just kind of break it down to the top five. Usually after the top five, they drop into quantities lower than 30. So I don't really touch on those ones too much. But these top five kind of stay the same. They usually kind of switch some places. But, in quarter two, the biggest one that we did have was finished square footage. And that can usually stem from a couple different things. One of them is on split style level. Wow. English is my friend. Split style homes. If it's a bi-level split, a three or four level split, what we'll see a lot of times is agents will include the below grade square footage in the above grade square footage and just kind of slap it all in that above ground or above grade area. Once you walk in that front door, anytime you go down any steps, it's usually going to be considered below grade, but we do see a lot of those where they include all of it in the above grade living finished square footage. So just kind of be careful of doing that. And then another one that we do see in finished square footage too is when agents are going to be listing like a 1.5 story home, and they'll just take your main floor footprint and double it for the upper level. And that's usually not going to be the case, especially on a 1.5-story home, just because the ceiling height requirements aren't going to be up to where they need to be. It usually has to start at 5 feet and reach a point of at least 7 in order for it to be considered finished square footage. So we'll see a lot of agents that just kind of go, oh, there's 900 square feet on the main floor, double it, and we got 1,800. But usually those types of concerns are sent to us from appraisers that either measure the property or are measuring a very similar property in the area, and they say that's not right. That's going to throw off the comps. So that's kind of the two biggest concerns when we see finished square footage in that category. The next thing, style. This one kind of pertains back to split level living. The biggest majority of them actually come from split entry, just an upper and a lower level, where we'll see agents that will list it as a one story with a walkout. And it's very rare that you have that split entry and you go downstairs and usually it's considered a basement, but we'll see a lot of agents that try to sneak it in there as a walkout one level structure. But, especially when you look at the pictures from the outside and you can see the windows are kind of offset rather than being higher and lower, but you'll see some lower level windows causing some issues with the styles. So we do see a couple of those. Another big one is modified 2 stories versus a regular 2-story home. We'll see modified 2 stories kind of get slapped in that 2-story category. And the biggest definition of those ones is when you have that upper level that's not as big as the entire first level. So we'll see, if you think of a rectangle and you've got an upper level just on one side of it, that's usually going to be your modified 2-story style house. So those are kind of the 2 biggest ones that we did see in quarter number 2. Next one, moving on to foundation size. The only real big problem with that one, well, actually there's 2 of them, but they're both pretty common. One of them is what I like to call fat fingering. I definitely have that problem, where you just type in what's supposed to be a 1,000 square foot foundation and it becomes a 10,000 square foot foundation. So just kind of be aware that our system does kind of check for those really large numbers. So we'll send those out to people and just kind of say it doesn't look quite right. The other issue sometimes being in the foundation size is when the agents will actually total up your total square footage, your finished square footage, and just put that in for the foundation size. And that's a field that's actually calculated automatically within the system. So just kind of be aware that if you ever try to put in your finished square footage total, that field is automatically calculated. So you don't really need to ever put that in there. Just kind of be aware of that with your foundation sizes. The next big one, status changes. This usually comes from when agents do get
Mac could also be contributing to the.
I hear a microphone.
Did he say this too?
We good? Okay. So the statuses, like I was saying, the statuses, the biggest thing is when purchase agreements are accepted by the sellers, and they don't update the listing status to include that contingency, whether it's contingent on inspection, sale of another property, financial. And I know over in Wisconsin, you guys have just the bump or no bump clauses. But even still, anytime a purchase agreement is accepted, it should be disclosed in the MLS using that contingency, whichever one applies. And again, with Wisconsin, bump or no bump is usually the only way to go. But we do have those pop up occasionally. And even sometimes too, agents will think they're doing the right thing. Well, they'll put it in the remarks and say an offer was accepted, last night or a specific date. And as helpful as that is, the idea about having those contingencies on there with that contingency flag is to narrow it down for agents when they're searching. Because it is a searchable field to see if a property has an accepted purchase agreement or is contingent on anything, basically signifying that there is a purchase agreement that's in place and has been accepted. So that's kind of why we ask, when you do accept a purchase agreement, please get that in there as quickly as you can and use that contingency status field to denote that. And then the last one here, the bed and bath equals 0. I know that's kind of confusing. It's a little bit of shorthand so that I can remind myself exactly what I'm talking about here. This is actually the first time I've seen this one pop up It's rarely in the top 5, but apparently in quarter number 2 this spring, it got up there. What that refers to is when you're filling out your listing data and you have a 3-bedroom home, 2 bathrooms, all that kind of stuff. You do kind of fill those fields in, but occasionally people either miss it or just type in a 0 in the wrong spot. And our system does check for that automatically. We do review them by hand because we do also know as you go further up north or kind of more out into the country-like areas, there may not be a legal bedroom or a bathroom. Especially in northern Minnesota, they have a lot of outhouses. If it's a seasonal property, they may not have plumbing and all that fun stuff either. So we do kind of know about that, but there were, as you can see, 72 of them in quarter 2 for properties in and around the metro area that didn't necessarily have those things marked correctly. But just kind of be aware of that. Like I said, it's very rare that one even gets into the top 5, but we made it in quarter 2. Hooray! So just a couple other quick notables, and usually these ones kind of float in and out of the top 5 as well, but they're just some ideas to keep in your head when you're filling out your listings and closing them out and everything. The big one right off the bat here, sold price and seller points. We do see those get reported incorrectly semi-frequently. I mean, it's not an everyday thing and it's not a constant thing, but we do send probably 3 or 4 of them a week, trying to just make sure that the sold price gets marked correctly, and we can check that against the CREV. Obviously, there's always a little bit of a delay between closing date and when it actually gets reported to the state and when it's available for public consumption. But we see those a lot of times too come from the buyer's agents. They'll say, no, that's not the right price. Please have that fixed. So just kind of be careful on that. Sold price, again, it kind of comes down to some fat fingering problems, which, like I said, I have a big problem with sometimes. But the other one is the seller points. So just kind of be aware of that. If you're typing in your seller contributions, just double check and make sure that those figures are entered correctly. Another one that I did see kind of an uptick in quarter number 2, and it's actually kind of continued through the summer up until now. Condo associations, acreages are not included in the sale of the property itself, the condo unit itself. So it's actually been kind of funny. I've seen some condos sold with about 20 acres of land, and I kind of get caught off guard by it and shake my head. But yeah, usually with condos, acreage is not included. You don't really own any of the land. You just own that unit. So just kind of be aware of that one. And then this one, I always feel really bad about talking about this one, non-conforming bedrooms, because we do get reports of this pretty frequently. With non-conforming bedrooms, when we get those reported to us, we do inquire about them, but the MLS does not have any determining factors on those. Those are all set by the city and the county that the property is located in. So if you do ever get an email or a question from us asking if a bedroom is or is not conforming, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to tell you if it is or not. You'd have to contact the city or the county the property is located in. And the biggest reason that we don't have any definitions per MLS rules is because, especially in the cities, metro area, there are some different requirements, whether there's a closet, no closet, the size of the egress window, the height of the egress window. So they're just kind of all over the map. So we kind of took a hands-off approach to that and just kind of hope everyone kind of monitors it themselves and enters it correctly. But like I said, we will ask about it if need be. So, and then just the little asterisks down there at the bottom. The bedroom count can only include conforming bedrooms. So, if you have a 4th non-conforming bedroom, you cannot include it in that count that I just highlighted there, the total bed and bath count. It should read 3 bedrooms in this example. It should read three bedrooms, and then in the remarks, you could say there is a 4th non-conforming bedroom in the upper level, basement, wherever it happens to be. So just kind of be aware of that when you're putting in your bedrooms and make sure it's up to city or county code. Depending on where the property is located and which rules apply. Square footage, I know this is a little bit on the older side, but we're still seeing some issues with it. As of August 4th, oh gosh, that was a long time ago already, we did add some new fields to include above ground total square footage, below ground total square footage, just to make sure that all the livable or could be made livable space is included in your listing. So, you know, when you're putting in those below ground square footage totals, just try to exclude your crawl spaces or storage spaces, you know, like under a set of stairs or something like that. That's not typically going to be included in your total square footage measurements. But yeah, the biggest thing is when you're putting in those measurements, just make sure that it's either already livable or could be made livable. So like an unfinished basement is where you would put that information in there. And your main
Justin?
floor totals. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Justin, quick question from one of our people is, if you have a septic system and it's set up for 4 bedrooms, but the home now has 4, would that bedroom be non-conforming?
So if the septic system is only rated for a certain number of bedrooms,
yeah,
that's a good question that we can't answer. That would again kind of fall under the city and county guidelines.
okay.
You know, if it's only rated for 3, I would think maybe not. But again, if the city or county would allow it to be considered a legal bedroom, even though the septic tank may not be big enough, you might be able to get away with it. But I can't answer that, unfortunately.
And Matt, our broker, you guys price all this, he said to err on the caution that it's not conforming.
Yeah,
but
I would also recommend doing that. But if you really want to get it in there, a quick phone call to the city or the county would be able to tell you for sure.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. So where did I leave off here? Square footage. Main floor total square footage, you know, if it's a 1-story home, your above ground and main floor square footage are going to be the same. You know, if it's a 2-story home, that main floor that you walk in on is going to be your main floor. And then your total above ground square footage is going to be including both floors, the main floor and the second level. So just kind of be aware of those things. Garage square footage, and we've had a lot of questions on this. I actually get questions on this every day still. Garage square feet, if you can park a car in it or a car is meant to be in it, it should be included in the measurement. If you have 2 separate garages, you know, an attached one and another garage shed thing that you're using out back, you would actually just add the total square footage of both structures. So, you know, instead of having a 2-car garage and then the other one measured and mentioned in the remarks, you would just put it all together and then put it in the remarks after the fact. But the total garage square footage is kind of what we're going for on that one. And there was another thing about garage square footage, and of course it's not there. Well, if I think of it, I'll mention it. But yeah, it should all just, condos, that's what it was. Garages in condos, usually, you know, if it's a shared underground parking space, condos, you do not need to fill out that garage square footage field. So you can actually leave that blank because, you know, you're not going to go measure the entire underground garage. So just kind of, if you ever have a question on that, you're not sure, you don't need to include it. But if you want to double check with us, you can certainly call us or email us and we'll let you know for sure. But again, condo garages, you do not need to include that. That field should not pop up as an error if you're putting that in the system and you have it blank. Withholds and coming soons, I'm sure, I think I've talked to you guys about this a little bit, but as we know, they all keep changing, so we're still updating and I'm still talking about them. With the coming soons, all the fields that are required for an active listing are also required for coming soon. So that includes photos, all the required inputs. You know, if you look at the MLS input field, MLS input sheet, all the required fields for actives are also required for coming soon. So if you think you can kind of skate by with not having all the measurements quite done yet, you're going to need to go back and get them. But with the coming soons, they are limited to just 21 days. So once you put it in there and you put that availability date, you have up to 21 days for that availability date to hit. And if you do need to change it to something before, you can certainly do that. There's no special form, no requirement. You know, we just say make sure you get something in writing from the sellers to acknowledge that change. And same thing, if you do need to push it out further, you can push it out further, but only up until that 21-day limit. So if they're still not ready to go after 21 days, you would only be able to really put it in a TNAS status until it is ready. So once they're ready, you can make it active and put it in there that way after, if that 21-day limit comes and goes. So you're not left completely hanging, but you're not going to be able to take advantage of that coming soon status after 21 days. And in that coming soon status, you can market the property, you can advertise the property. The only thing you can't do really in a coming soon is show the property, whether it's an open house, a private showing, a broker, an agent preview. There can be no showings whatsoever in that coming soon status. So try not to give anyone any false hope, because we've had a lot of people call and complain to us about that as well. And then another quick thing about the coming soon status, I get this question at least twice a day. If a party wants to make an offer in a coming soon status without even seeing it, because it does happen, my sister and her husband just did it a few months ago. They put an offer in on a coming soon without even seeing the property, but they can submit it and the sellers can accept it in that coming soon status. Now, if it's contingent basically on seeing the property and doing an inspection, you would have to either make the property active or put it in a TNAS status with that purchase agreement being disclosed in the contingency field. In TNAS, you can do a walkthrough. I think in showing time it only says final walkthrough, but you can also use it as just a walkthrough if this scenario comes up. But inspectors can also still go in there and do what they got to do to inspect the property for the buyers. So just kind of be aware of that. If that ever does come up for you guys in a coming soon status, you can accept an offer and the sellers can accept an offer, and offers can be submitted. And we get a lot of people that also are very upset that they had buyers that really wanted to see it, but they missed out on it because somebody sent an offer in and it was accepted right away. So they never really got a fair shot at it. Yeah, it's also not fun. I've had to listen to a lot of those types of phone calls, but it's the way the rules are written. It is permitted and it is allowed. But moving on to withholds, just real quick. Withheld statuses, before the clear cooperation policy came in, you were able to market them. You were able to put them on Zillow, Facebook, whatever kind of website you wanted to put them on. But that all changed March 1st this year. Great timing, I know. But as of now, withholds, you cannot market them. You cannot advertise them in any way, including yard signs. So if you have a sign you want to put in the yard, you cannot do it until it's either coming soon or active. So just kind of be aware. If your sellers are kind of private, they might want to do a withhold, but it's going to be a little bit harder to get the word out. What you can do in a withheld status is you can discuss it. You can share it within your office. If you think of withhelds as an office exclusive, you guys can discuss it during your morning meetings and stuff of that nature. You can discuss it and say, hey, I've got this house. Does anyone have a buyer that might be interested in it? Absolutely. But another thing that kind of caused a little bit of confusion early on is it's not just limited to your office. In your office, you can definitely send out a blast email to all of your colleagues. But if you have a friend or a former coworker that you wanted to maybe share it with them, you could definitely call them or email them and let them know that you have a property that's currently withheld and do that. But is there a question?
Yeah. So
Okay.
Justin, on your coming soon, if an offer is submitted and accepted, as you know, in Wisconsin, we can't disclose what the contingency is. So
Yes.
would accepted offer other be acceptable?
Yeah, that would work. I know prior to introducing the bump and no bump contingencies, that was kind of the way to go in Wisconsin. So you technically can still use that because it doesn't really show exactly what the contingency is. So if you wanted to go that route, you could do that as well.
Okay.
All right. Let's see here. Where did I leave off? Oh yeah, withheld. You can discuss them. Like I said, you can talk about them with other friends, other colleagues, former coworkers, other agents, in a one-on-one scenario. Like I said, email, text message. If you're doing like a big blast email and including multiple people on it, that's going to get frowned upon. And if we hear about it, somebody might report it to us. So just kind of err on the side of caution on that one as well. But in that withheld status, if you do get somebody that is interested, you can show the property. So you are able to bring people through as long as the sellers agree to it. You can definitely show that property to interested parties, and there's no issue with that at all. So Yeah, I say that's coming soon and withholds. Are there any other questions on that one? I know I kind of run through it pretty quickly, but all right, looks like no. So we'll slide on into the MLS timelines. I say we had a lot of questions about this, especially with all the changes that came up regarding the clear cooperation policy. First things first, all listings should still be entered within 2 business days of your contract start date. I know in Minnesota the contract start date is line 10. The Wisconsin one is escaping me. But whatever date you have for your contract start date, all listings should be entered within 2 business days of that. So excluding weekends, excluding holidays, you can get a little extra time at the 3rd day if it's a holiday. But the weekends, you don't need to put it in there. Obviously, getting it in there as soon as possible definitely opens it up to more people to see it. So we do kind of suggest doing that, but the rule is technically 2 business days. So you got a little bit of time to get them in there. And like I said, that should be done with all listings, whether it's going in as a withheld, a coming soon, or an active. Just try to make sure you do have it in there within those 2 business days of that contract start date. Like I said, line 10 of the listing agreement, but I can't remember still have no idea what Wisconsin's is. I don't know. I do not remember. The only thing that really ever could change that though is if your contract start date, for example, let's just say it says October 1st and your sellers don't sign it until today. What's today, the 14th? Your new contract start date would actually be today's date. So you would have 2 business days from today if they signed it after what the original contract said. So you wouldn't need to go back and get an all new listing agreement and everything. It just kind of becomes a contract on the day that they sign it if it falls after that original date. And then one real quick thing too, this kind of goes back to some withholds. If a property that is withheld in the system is marketed in any way, you have to make it active or coming soon within 1 business day. And this is one thing that kind of irritates a lot of people. They'll see a sign on Friday, a sign in the yard, and the property will be withheld, and then Monday it'll go active, or even as late as Tuesday it will go active. But that technically falls in line with the 1 business day rule again, because again, weekends and holidays are not counted for those. So just kind of, if you do have a withhold and you want to try to get a jump start on it, not that I'm telling everyone this, but I am, if you put a sign out on Friday, you can start, technically speaking, doing what you got to do to get that property out there and get people in there and show it if you get to that point. So, but yeah, it's 1 business day if a property that is withheld is marketed. Just a couple other real quick reminders. We've had some questions about this kind of stuff too, especially with COVID-19 and everything going on. We do recommend everyone follows the CDC guidelines, but we have had reports of agents not complying with those at all. I actually had a pretty lengthy email from another agent a couple weeks ago. The buyers or the sellers wanted people to wear masks, leave the shoes on, hand sanitize, all the whole 9 yards. But people were going into the house and they had cameras in the house and nobody was wearing masks and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, if you could just adhere to the seller's request to the best of your ability, try not to make too big of a stink. Like everyone always says, treat it like it's your own, even if it's not. You don't want people walking through your house and making a mess out of everything. So that's kind of what we're going for. If the sellers ask you to wear masks and use hand sanitizer, and even if that stuff's provided, please try to be considerate to what they ask you to do. We all know it's not exactly the most comfortable thing at all times, but if that's what they ask for, try to do your best to like I said, adhere to any requests that they might have. Another big one is overlapping showings. I've had some agents complain that sellers aren't allowing overlapping showings, and of course that is their discretion. They don't have to allow that. So if they're not going to allow that, try to build that into your time frame. If they have a showing at noon and they don't want anyone in there again until 2, try not to overlap in there. Whether they're going in there to clean or do whatever, just try to adhere again to their requests and try not to make too big of a mess out of it, because we've had some real yellers sometimes calling us. But is there another question?
Yep.
Yep.
Do you need to disclose if the sellers have a camera running?
That is a question I've been asked before. I'm trying to remember, because it was actually the Department of Commerce and Ethics Committee that had something on that. And I can't remember the answer off the top of my head, but I can find that and I can email it to you guys. I think it was actually the Minnesota Department of Commerce, so the Wisconsin one might be a little bit different, but I will find that and I will get that emailed to you. I just, I've been asked that maybe twice before, and I actually had Mike, the supervisor, email it to me, and I've got it. I just don't remember exactly what it said, but I will send that along to you as well, so that nobody gets in trouble or confused or anything like that. But
yeah, just send it to me, Justin, and I'll get it out. Thank you.
That I can definitely do.
Okay.
So again, no overlapping showings, or if the sellers do have a showing limits, they're only going to allow 3 a day. If you ask politely and they say no, don't try to hound them to get another one in there. And then we do, with the ad edit system, I know, I don't know if you guys have run into it too much, but we did do a big update to it a few weeks ago, and the auto-populating feature that kind of puts all that data in there wasn't working quite right. We were seeing some metro parcels, metro lots that should read, 0.25 acres would show up as 25 acres. So this is just kind of my personal plea. When you do put it in there, we had it fixed and it actually broke again earlier this week. So when you do kind of do any auto-populating of data into your listings, just try to give it a look over and just verify that it is correct. I sent out a ton of notices about acreage for that exact reason. And like I said, they did have it fixed, but it looks like it broke again earlier this week. So just try to verify that data and everything should be good. Otherwise, we'll just send a notice and say, you're missing a decimal point. And nobody really likes to get those nasty grams, because I don't like sending them. I don't like dealing with them, but that's what I'm here for, unfortunately. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all of it.
I've got a couple of questions,
Sure.
Justin, and then once I ask these, I'll let you guys, if you want your quick question, you can unmute. First is another question on non-conforming bedrooms.
Okay.
So is it best practice to include non-conforming bedrooms in the overall stats so it shows up in searches with a larger number of bedrooms, and then the agent comments make it known that bedrooms are non-conforming due to a smaller septic or lack of closet, windows, etc.? So we can call the home a 4-bedroom, but then disclose in comments that 1 bedroom is non-conforming.
No. Kind of like I was saying on that slide about the non-conforming bedrooms, if it's non-conforming, it could not be considered a bedroom. So if you have that fourth bedroom that's technically not conforming, you would not be able to include it in that count. You would have to say that it is legally a 3-bedroom. So you would just put 3 bedrooms on that listing. And then in the remarks, again, you could say there is a 4th non-conforming bedroom, and you could say what it happens to be that's making it non-conforming. So if it is a septic system or a lack of closet or a lack of egress or the size of the egress, whatever the case may be, you could put that in the remarks down there.
Okay, perfect. And then the only other question I have is, are there any fines currently for not following COVID-19 guidelines?
We do not have any. It's an on your honor system. We don't really have any rules that say you can or cannot, skirt the rules or anything like that, because technically there are no MLS rules for it. At this point, it's still CDC guidelines, and the mask mandates are mostly for public spaces or public bars and stuff of that nature. So private homes aren't really in that realm. But if you are running into a problem consistently, we'd recommend contacting the ethics board and kind of bringing it up to them. And if you can pinpoint it to one one or a couple agents specifically, they would be able to talk to them, I guess. Like I said, there's no real major rules about it, but that's kind of why I put that in this presentation this go around, because we have gotten some complaints on it, and then I tell them exactly what I just told you. We don't really have any rules that allow them or don't allow them to break those requests, but you know, if it becomes a problem, obviously something will probably change, you know, whether the board, the rules committee makes a rule, whatever. That could happen. I don't see it happening, especially anytime soon. But if the reports get bigger and more frequently reported to us, I should say, then there might have to be action taken. But yeah, as of right now, there's really no recourse for agents that don't abide by those requests and CDC guidelines.
Okay. All right. Another one. Is there a reason that an MLS listing which was pushed to Zillow would drop off of Zillow? Could it happen when data is updated?
So you're saying if it was a listing in Northstar MLS and it was pushed from Northstar MLS to Zillow and it drops off of Zillow for some reason?
Yep.
The only thing I could think of where that would happen is if the broker of that office that had that listing in MLS turned off the reciprocation to Zillow, or they removed it manually themselves.
Okay.
I know a lot of brokerages most of them actually have their own kind of deal with Zillow where they put it in their own database and then their database goes out to Zillow. And if they stop it for whatever reason, or they just don't want it to go out there and Zillow got it from us and they take it off, you know, there's a lot of different paths that could lead to that potentially happening. But yeah, if you see it there one day and it's not there the next, it's either a status change has occurred on the MLS or they removed it by their own means.
Okay, perfect. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to that's all I've got in the chat. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask Justin anything you've got.
Filming a Pepsi commercial while we're doing this.
If anybody in the training room has a question, raise your hand and I'll unmute the room.
If not, you guys can always email us too. If you ever have any questions, give us a call, shoot us an email, and we can definitely get that answered for you. Best way to do it is definitely through email. Just rules@northstarmls.com. We'll get to it. Usually we see it in about 10 minutes or less, and we'll shoot you a response as quickly as we can. So,
okay. Anybody? All righty. Well, thank you, Justin. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, just shoot them their way, or and they're always there to help.
Yeah, and then let me grab your email address too, so I can email you that.
It's klrw667@kw.com.
And it was oh gosh, what was it for again? The